friend. It's great to be with you on this Church Tips podcast. And today I have the privilege of hanging out with my buddy from the great city and state of Sioux City, Iowa, Johnny Helton from Morningside Assembly. Johnny, great to be with you today.
Hey, Dick, it's great to be here today. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of your podcast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, Johnny and I, we've known each other for now. What are we talking? 15 years?
Well, I've been here 16 years. So
16. That's how long we've known each other then.
Thanks to you.
Yeah. Well, God's been good to Johnny up in Sioux City. Sioux City happens to be my hometown. And so I'm like the poster boy who loves to cheer for Sioux City and
especially
all that
East
it's
High,
about.
right? Especially
East High. Yeah, I got my East High Black Raiders T-shirt hanging in the closet over there. So I should have had that on today. Is what I should have done. But
yeah, you should. Yeah.
Anyway, we want to. Johnny and I were talking last week about the subject of community involvement and the importance of a church in what they do in touching people outside the walls of the church. And I know it's a real passion of Johnny's. So give us a little jump start into that, Johnny. What are you doing? Maybe give a little bit of the background and set the stage for it. And then let's just talk about some of the options that are available for pastors to involve themselves in the community.
Sure. Well, again, thanks for inviting me to be a part of your podcast today. As you said a moment ago, I've been here at Morningside 16 years. Gone by really, really fast. But I've really since the beginning of my ministry, when I started in the state of Georgia, my home state, the church that I worked at was in a small community, 38,000 people. That's not small, but it is for some cities. Anyhow, the pastor that I worked for there, one of the things that I learned a lot from him, I learned a lot of what to do, and I learned a lot of what not to do. But one of the things that really stuck out to me that he did was he was always community minded. And that really, as a right out of Bible college, getting started in ministry, that was something that really stuck with me. So I was involved in the community there, school system, doing things, outreaches with other youth pastors in the church, in the city. And then in 1991, I moved to Dallas, Texas. So, of course, I wanted to be involved in my community there. I actually moved to a town called Duncanville, Texas, a church called Crossroads of Life. And so I'm thinking, okay, how do I get involved in the community? I went to a Youth Alive conference up in Denton, Texas. It was hosted by the National Youth Ministry Department. And I was listening to Jeff Swaim speak, and he said something that kind of freed me up, that helped me to kind of relax. And because Youth Alive is always pushing Bible clubs. And I'm thinking, I don't know that I have time to start all these Bible clubs. And he said, Youth Alive is more than a Bible club. And I thought, Mark, then that frees me up. Then that gives me liberty. So anyhow, I started looking for ways to get involved in my community, and what my school superintendent, other people. One door just, started being faithful. I wrote a letter and went and met with every principal in the city and, said, this is who I am. I went in with no demands. I said, can I be of assistance to you anyway? And they just said, sure, just don't cause me any problems. So I started faithfully going to a campus every week and having lunch with students or just hanging out, getting myself known in the community, showing myself to be faithful. And then one door opened after another door opened, and I was able to serve as a mentor in school system, working with troubled kids, or some were troubled. Most were kids that wanted to go through like what they call positive peer leadership training, which that opened up another door, which eventually led to me serving on an education foundation where we were 28 other board of directors, which led me to, we raised money for innovative teaching grants. But those things opened doors for me with our church, which then our church moved to where we were helping 100 families every year at Christmas in our school system. Wow. And it's because I just showed myself faithful, didn't make any demands. I just found a hole, a need, and I met it. And so in the 17 years that I was there in Duncanville, the Lord gave me really, really great favor as a youth pastor in the community. In fact, if you were to call up my former pastor, who's the district superintendent of North Texas, he would tell you that I was actually more known in the community than he was. I've heard him say that many times. So then we just moved that. Then when I came to Sioux City in 2008, I was looking for ways to get involved in the community. And so I thought, well, I'll just pursue the avenues that I did when I was at the previous two churches. Well, those doors just did not open. And I thought, well, I'm a lead pastor, but well, those doors should open, but they just did not open. But I still had the strong conviction that a church should be more than just a building and a group of people that meet at a certain place every week on a certain street in a town, that you should be involved outside the doors of your church. So I kept knocking and trying to push and get doors open, and nothing would happen. But in 2012, so I've been here 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 4 years, I got a call from a friend of mine, Rick Ryan at Convoy of Hope, and he said, Convoy I think it was their 25th anniversary. They were wanting to do 25 outreaches this year and 50 and 25 the next year. And he asked if I'd be willing to coordinate one in Sioux City. And of course, I kind of gave him the spiritual answer. Well, let me pray. I did. I said, let us just pray. We've all done that. It's kind of our way of saying, I really don't want to, but push him off for a little while. And he called me back. And that was also at a very pivotal time in my ministry here at Morningside, because it was still within that 5-year window of where you're still gaining credibility with your church and kind of, getting them to start to follow you. So it was really a critical moment because I was seriously considering not staying. And so I was praying about that outreach one day, and the Lord reminded me that I'd prayed that I always wanted to do one of those when I lived in the Dallas area. And the Lord said to me, well, now's the time.
Here you go. Yeah.
So I did not know how to go about that. I had no money. I didn't have any influence at the time because I had not had doors open for me in the community. So I called Rick and I said, all right, I'll do this. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. So just through some divine conversations, I got a phone call from the mayor of our city. And he said, I hear that you're wanting to do this outreach in our community. And I said, yeah. He said, could I come by your office and meet with you? And I said, well, sure. I said, when? He said, how about now? We came by my office and I sat down with him and he said, tell me what this is. Tell me what this Convoy of Hope thing is. And so I told him, and he said, where are you thinking about doing it? And I said, well, I really don't know yet. I'm still just trying to figure all this out. And he said, well, it sounds like to me that you need our the Tyson Event Center, which is our big event center downtown, seats about 8,000 people. And I said, whoa. I said, that's really, how much is that thing going to cost? Don't worry about it. Picked up the phone. He called. He said, this is Mayor Bob Scott. Is the Tyson Event Center available so-and-so dates? Yes, reserve it for me. So that got the ball rolling. So I said, well, Lord, what do I do now? And the Lord just impressed me. Invite a bunch of pastors to lunch, pay for their lunch, pitch the idea to them. I did that. I asked him, I said, I pitched the idea. I fielded questions. I said, would you take the next month and pray about this? Come back next month and I'll provide lunch with you again. And I'll have a Convoy rep here. And then we'll do either thumbs up or thumbs down. And so we did that and came back the next month, and all of them, a few backed out, but the majority of them said yes.
Yeah.
So that got the ball rolling, a year of work and other doors open and other organizations in the community. And so a year later, we were able to pull off Sioux City's first ever Convoy of Hope outreach, and we had 30 churches involved. We had over 1,500 volunteers from various churches. We raised, $57,000, paid for it all, gave away 2 semi-truckloads of food. So that outreach did 2 things. One, it gave me great influence in the community, not as Morningside Assembly, but as a pastor who has a desire to work with other churches as the umbrella of the church instead of one church. And,
right.
It's really easy for us to be an island and say, you know what, we'll just do it ourselves. It takes more work to work together.
Yeah.
But when you work together, it's greater for the kingdom.
Yeah.
And so that ministry, that outreach gave me great favor in the community, which we've done 3 others since then. And then now we've kind of transitioned. We're not doing the big outreaches anymore. We haven't done it in the last couple of years, but what we've started doing now, through COVID, other things like that, we're known as a point of distribution. Convoy will send me truckloads of food. And what I do is I call my partner churches that partnered with us in those outreaches and say, look, I've got this truckload of food coming in. How many of you want it? And we'll take it and we equally divide it up, and then they go distribute it to either put it in their food pantries or they go distribute it to people that they know that need it.
Well, and I'm guessing that just gave you such credibility with the city that they knew they could trust you and count on you to be help to the people beyond the spiritual aspect of it.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, am I right on that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No doubt. And that is, foster other relationships within the community with other pastors and open doors up for us in the school system. We have a group of churches now that every fall we provide brand new shoes. We've all adopted a school, and we provide, like the school that we do, we'll provide in the fall, we'll provide 700 brand new pairs of shoes and socks for the kids in the school.
Oh,
this
year.
Cool. I think we have 5 schools in Sioux City that we're doing. Our goal is to cover all. We have 10 Title I schools, and our goal is to in 1 week to give shoes out to all those 10 Title I schools. And we have about 5 or 6 churches that participate in that now, and we're wanting to add more. But yes, it's given me great favor. And back to the original story was the event center. You've been in Sioux City, the one I'm talking about downtown. So the total cost for them letting us use that was $500.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
that event center. But just a little aside for you, Johnny, was the last high school basketball game I played in that event center. So it wasn't near as nice and cool as it is now. But
so you played in the old Long Lines building then.
Oh yeah. So yeah, go ahead. You go ahead and feel free to date me, man. Date me. So make me.
But so not only did that outreach give me, some great credibility in our community, but it also gave me great credibility with my church to show them that I had the ability to be able to lead something like that and work with people. Then it really also saved my ministry because I was seriously contemplating leaving Morningside at that time.
You're going to be there. Yeah. So to the pastor who says, this is great, but I'm all about winning people to Jesus. How do you respond to that person? If assuming it's given in the right spirit, how do you respond to a person like that?
And it's a very valid question because we're supposed to be about winning people to the Lord. But I found out that it's easier to win somebody to the Lord when you're helping to meet a tangible need in their life, such as, saying you need Jesus, but don't give them, but they're hungry.
Yeah.
Or you need Jesus, but they need a new pair of shoes. Their shoes that they're wearing or the holes are worn out. But I don't really care. But sure, we should. The soul is the most important thing. We understand that. That's the eternal thing. But if I can figure out how to meet a tangible physical need in their life, that sure opens the door for me to be able to talk about the spiritual thing in their life.
Yeah. So I find it interesting. Those first 4 years, you were hitting roadblocks. You really didn't. You weren't able to make the headway in schools or government, city, county, and so on. But then that breakthrough came at a point, and that was really a God moment for you.
Yeah, it was. I was certainly felt like I wanted to just give up and did I make the wrong choice coming here? You have all those thoughts that go through your mind. But I remember that verse that in Galatians 6:9, let us not grow weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap a harvest if we faint not. So, it takes a while to earn credibility. It takes a while for people to buy into your vision. Who are you? I mean, it's a good thing that I wasn't able to do that in the first couple of years I was here because I hadn't earned credibility in the community. And so it takes time to do that. I think that, what's the old saying, or it was the old saying, it takes 5 years before you can actually get a church moving in the direction that you wanted to go. The way society is today and people are in church, I think sometimes it may take you even a little bit longer than that.
Yeah, really good.
And you got to be willing to stay the course, and staying the course isn't always the easiest thing to do.
It is easy. When I was in Des Moines, I served as the public school board member in Johnston for 9 years. So I served three-year terms, and we had a couple of other people from our church that did the same thing. And the overwhelming majority of stuff we dealt with wasn't of big spiritual nature or cultural. We were doing school board business.
Mm-hmm.
And engaging in building a growing school system. But it is so valuable what those relationships do, and how at a further point down the line, when people in those settings have personal need, because everybody does, they know where they can turn.
Mm-hmm.
In Sioux City, they know they can turn to Johnny Helton because they've learned to know him and to trust him.
Yeah. And I'm not the only one in Sioux City that's built that kind of credibility. There's been some spinoffs from those outreaches, and some other churches really, bought into the idea of being more community minded, and they've started ministries in town. Right. One of the churches down the street from us, they have started a Hope Center where they really launched out and spent a lot of money, and they provide, I don't know how many families a week with groceries and other things, and they're doing a great job at it. And but none of that was happening before these convoy outreaches, and then these churches got on board, and then they began to see the value. And so now some of them have started not just have a ministry that was there for a weekend, but now they have an ongoing weekly ministry. And so that was my goal, that not it be just something about Morningside, but it be something community minded, that we do this under the umbrella of the church, and that we see that the importance of being engaged in our community, not just on Sundays, but throughout the week.
Well, and when you talk about that, and you talk about the church, I'm going to say the church, big C. Mm-hmm. So rather than just seeing Morningside Assembly or Central Baptist or any other churches, and they are there and they have their own uniquenesses, but there really is a Church of Sioux City, where you guys have joined together for the good of the church, in the material good, food, clothing, so on, but also the spiritual good.
I think one of the most powerful.
What's that?
I was going to say, I think one of the most powerful things that came out of all this was when we were planning it. And of course, our mayor is a believer, and so that helps also. But in one of our meetings, and you have to remember that in these meetings for planning this event, this wasn't just pastors. These were pastors, and then people that worked in our community, that work in community agencies, like that provide assistance to people. And one day in one of our meetings, the mayor said, I've been the mayor of this town for 25 years. He's been several terms, and he said, I haven't seen this kind of involvement and unity among the churches in this city in 25 years.
Wow.
That was a huge statement.
Yeah, really was.
And again, it wasn't about, certainly I was the one that was leading the charge, but it wasn't about Morningside Assembly of God. It was 28 to 30 other churches that were involved in that.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, the listener, the viewer has consumed this content to this point, and if they heard nothing else out of what you said, what is one takeaway you want the pastor who's listening to have heard?
There's a key somewhere to opening doors for you to make an influence in your city. It may not be what I did, but there's a key. And if they will pray, the Lord will show them the key. And then you got to because remember when we stepped out and did these outreach, I had no money. And so one of the first questions that was asked me, what's your budget? I said, I don't have a budget. Where are you going to get your money? I don't know where I'm going to get the money. But I knew in my knower that God had told us to do it. And it was a lot of work. But if you want to reach your city and you want to have influence, you got to be willing to step out in faith and find the need, and every city has a need, and work to meet it.
Yeah, that is so good.
And involve other people with you.
Absolutely. Johnny, man, I can't thank you enough. This has been absolutely great podcast. I thank you for what you're doing there in Sioux City. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your investment in the pastors in this podcast today. It was very, very meaningful. So thank you very much.
It was my pleasure. And thank you for, you were the key that helped get me to Sioux City. And so,
man,
I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, I've always appreciated watching your ministry from afar once you got there. But great days are ahead. Great days ahead for you and for the pastors watching and listening to this podcast.
Thanks for inviting me to be a part of it.
You bet. Friends, thanks very much for hanging out with us on this. Certainly, it would help us if you would be willing to rate and review the podcast and certainly subscribe to it. We're trying to put out regular content of pastors and leaders on topics that are germane to ministry. As well, if you're looking to grow yourself and your ministry, Jonathan and I have what's called the 4 Secrets Masterclass, and you can we'll have that in the show notes, but you can click onto that by just going to Leaders.Church/secrets, and you can jump on. It's a 60-minute masterclass that's free to you that will help you navigate your own personal growth, because as a pastor grows, so grows the church. And Johnny has proven that up there at Morningside, and we're proud of him for having done that. Thanks very much for hanging out with us on this podcast. Make it a great one today, and be blessed.
Hey, Jonathan here, real quick before you go. Everything in your ministry rises and falls on your leadership. So investing in your leadership is essential to staying healthy and growing the ministry. And that's why I want to invite you to join us inside the Leaders.Church membership. This online streaming service for pastors gives you access to more than 300 videos plus training material to level up your leadership and improve your ministry skills. If you'd like to do that, I want to invite you to go to Leaders.Church/boost. Again, that's Leaders.Church/boost. Well, thanks again for joining us on the Church Tips Podcast. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.